I had to edit a lot of this episode here. Something with the audio was really off, so if it sounds a little different, that's probably why. It was on my end. I didn't have his levels up, but not going to bore you with the details. Anyway, Cory Wells. All right, man. So I've got a lot of questions. I've been taking a lot of notes throughout the week. So first off, I just want to ask: are you big into games?
Oh, for sure.
So what are some of your favorite games? Oh boy, look at that.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I don't know. I like a lot of like the single player games and stuff. It took me a long time to get into Elden Ring, but once I did, I like love it. Um, but I play like a lot of shooters and stuff too. Like I play Counter Strike mostly.
Yeah, you're not alone there.
I hate my life, so.
Um, so what did you grow up playing games, or was it something that you picked up down the line when you maybe in your
No,
teens
I
or?
did. I always grew up. I had like my parents had like this like Windows like laptop from when I was a kid, and so I played like Counter Strike like 1.6 on there, and then some like other games. Like I grew up like playing like Doom and stuff like that, and I remember the first time I got Doom 3, and it was like right when it came out, and it was like 6 discs or something to install, and I installed it, and then I went to play it, and it was in like 5 FPS. And I was like, what's going on? And I called my buddy, and he was like, and mind you, I'm like 9 years old, and I called my buddy, and I was like, hey, like my computer like won't like this game's like broken. I'm pissed off. And he's like, well, what kind of graphics card do you have? And I was like, what is that? Like I just thought it was like a console. Like if you could buy the game, you could play it.
Yeah,
And that wasn't the case. But yeah, and then we had the computer growing up, and then that crashed, and the motherboard broke on it, and they replaced it with like a Windows, like, or not a Windows, like an iMac. And I
yeah,
was like, oh, I can't play games anymore. So then I did like console until I had like all the PlayStations until until I turned like 26, so maybe like 7 years ago. I switched back over to PC, and it's funny, it had been like so long that I like didn't even know there was like a difference. Like I didn't even know that PC was like so much better
yeah,
because I was in console world for like my whole life.
yeah,
But yeah, that being said, I like love like all the old like PlayStation exclusives though. Like Metal Gear Solid is like top franchise there with
yeah,
like Resident Evil and stuff too. I love that stuff.
yeah. That's I like the longer I go back to these old games and like Super Nintendo or NES or Sega or N64 or whatever it may be, I'd find myself like really grabbing onto the PlayStation exclusives like Metal Gear and especially Resident Evil. It's my favorite franchise of all time.
Yeah, I love it, dude. The remakes are so good.
Oh my gosh, the
They're doing it right. They're doing
when
it right.
4 remake came out, I was like, I need to just be in the basement away from everybody for like 3 days to just take it all in.
Yeah. I love 4. Obviously everybody loves 4, but the Resident Evil 2 remake for me
Oh
was
my gosh, that was
that was like
an
2 was
absolute
my favorite.
perfect. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
well done, and it wasn't like they didn't introduce too much like new stuff to stray away from what made 2 great.
Yeah.
It just kind
Yeah, it
of
was,
like brought it into its own and just they killed it on that. I hope
yeah.
they
I do miss like the tank controls and like the fixed camera angles and stuff a little bit. Like
yeah, it's
I feel like part
charming.
of it like it made it that's what like part of it made it scary, you know. So it's like it's hard to control your dude, so you're just like you can't always do what you want to do because you're like going the wrong way, or you like accidentally run towards a zombie, or you go around a corner and the
Yeah.
camera angle changes and they're like right there and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah, that was like going back to those controls. It's kind of annoying at first,
Sure.
but then you're
You
like,
get used to it so
okay,
quick.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like when you're running around and the camera changes and then you start running back towards the way and it changes again, you're just like, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little tricky. Yeah, Resident Evil 4, I feel like the controls, the OG controls, did not age very well. I tried to play it on computer, and I was like,
Oh, the piece playing it on PC is the
unplayable.
worst. It's terrible. It's so bad. Like I can get used to it to where it's like comfortable enough to get a hang of it and like get through it, but like right off the rip after playing like new PC games, it's like I can't do this.
Yeah,
It's
it was
too
hard.
weird. But I heard you at one of your live shows I was watching on YouTube. You mentioned about coming to your merch table to try and beat you in Smash Brothers to win a
Yeah.
CD.
Yeah, I think it was if you beat me, you get a free CD. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
But if I win, you have to buy a vinyl.
Yeah.
So it was like, but it was I played a lot of people and I suck at Smash, so I gave
Oh, I'm terrible.
a lot of free CDs.
Now, was that like the Nintendo Switch version?
Yeah, yeah.
I like to
It's so easy to like have at the table, you know.
I like to imagine you just lugging around a CRT TV.
I haven't seen a band do that before though. I've seen a band like full blown, and I think it was Smash too. I think they had like a GameCube or something, and they had like Melee, and they had like a CRT TV. Like, and they just
That
played
wouldn't
it at the
surprise me.
table.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen some bands do some really strange stuff. Like especially when I was like 17 ish. Like the venues around us were like these real weird like warehousey type of venues, and like you could just get away with doing like whatever you wanted. So like
yeah,
it was like I've seen some just weird setups. People would like set up their guitar cabinets and have like these weird displays over top of them. It's weird stuff. But that's when I was playing in like death metal bands
sure,
or
love it.
whatnot.
I love it.
I
I
think
still listen to death metal on a daily basis.
I have a soft spot for it. Actually at one of the venues I played with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Waking the Cadaver.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we played with one with them and some other big band at the time. I can't even think of who it was, but it was a big deal for us because they were,
Cadaver was a MySpace band.
yeah, so they were huge and they actually ended up stealing our friend's band. They stole his cymbals. So,
On purpose? Or like,
yeah, they stole them just because they weren't the nicest guys, but
that's a bummer.
yeah.
I've had weird band stuff like that growing up where I remember my band, we drove to this venue in this city called Rancho Cucamonga, and it was like it was this venue called the Nitty Gritty, and I was probably like, God, 17 maybe younger even, and it was like we were direct support. I don't even know if there was like direct support. It was just this band that had broken up that was from the area was doing like a comeback show. I can't even remember what they're called. And it was like their show that they put on, and they came up to us and they're like, "Hey, can we like borrow your guys' gear?" And we were like what? What do you need? And they're like everything. It's like I remember just being like 16 or 17 like, no, like what? And I was like, all right, well, what tuning do you play in? And we were in like drop D or drop C or something, and they were like drop A or something ridiculous. And I remember him telling my bass player like, oh yeah, like I'll tune it back up for you like when we're done. And he's like, what? No, like no.
So they had to borrow the guitars too.
Oh, everything. They wanted guitars, amps, drum set. Like they showed up to the show like they were a band that was broken up, and they had
They just
nothing.
had
They showed up with
nothing.
nothing.
Oh my god.
God, I wish I could remember what they were called.
Cause like I've had to do some weird stuff. I'm a lefty, so when
Yeah.
if I would like show up to a show and like I didn't have my bass or I forgot it because I was 14 or 15,
Have
I'd
to
have to
restring somebody's.
I'd have to borrow someone's and play it upside down.
Oh, that's weird.
Which I mean, at the time we weren't writing any complex stuff, not like 14 and 15-year-olds now, but
Sure, but I guess if you've done it before and it's like something you're like, I can get around it.
yeah.
But to me, like flipping a guitar upside down would be like, what? What do I do?
Oh yeah, flipping a guitar around would be miserable,
Take
but
me
a
like
bass
15 seconds to make a chord shape.
yeah. So how long have you been playing music? Whether it's, your solo stuff or in bands as a teenager.
I've I've been playing music. God, I think my parents forced me to learn how to play guitar when I was like 8. Um, and it was so funny because they bought me like an acoustic guitar, and I hated it. Because I loved like Metallica and Ozzy and stuff like that, and then I would um, try to play that, and it would sound horrible
Yep.
because I have acoustic, and I'd be like, this sucks, I hate this. And then I think after I'd been playing for a year, they got me an electric guitar, and like a little crate, like 15-watt solid state amp with distortion on it, and I could not put it down. Like I loved it. I just fell in love, and it's so funny because now I don't even remember the last time I played electric guitar. Like it's been, like I made a career out of acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
and when I first started, I hated acoustic guitar. But I mean, I did my solo thing. I think I started. God, when was it? Um, Maybe like 8 years ago, I think, was when I first like I'd always been interested in the acoustic thing, and but I felt like I wrote all these songs, and I was just like mimicking what other people were doing, like trying to find my sound.
Yep.
Um, and then I think like 8 or so years ago, I wrote that song "Avoid the Blame," and I was like, "Oh, this is me. Like this is what I sound like." And then sort of took it like from there. Um, but before that, I mean, I was always in like metal bands and hardcore bands and stuff like that. This is my solo project is the only thing that I've ever done along like these lines.
Yeah.
Everything else has been pretty polar opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, like um it's interesting when you say like you picked up the acoustic and you hated it at first and then like you came back to it. Do you think you hated it because it was like kind of forced on you, or you didn't have a choice like between electric or acoustic?
Probably, probably that definitely factored into it. I think is that my parents were just like, "You're gonna learn how to play guitar," and I was just like, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to. I guess I just didn't want to put in the work. Like I felt like I sucked at it.
Yeah.
Um, but part of the reason that I didn't want to put in the work is because I would learn, like I'd want to learn like Master of Puppets, and I'd learn it and I'd play it on my little nylon string acoustic guitar, and it didn't sound anything like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this sucks. Like I hate this. And then, like I said, I've got an amp with distortion and a shitty $100 electric guitar, and played Master of Puppets, and I was like, this is awesome. Like
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like having that first, like you learn a song and how to play it and it sounds like what you've heard and you're like, I'm doing this, not them, it's me doing it. Cuz
Yeah.
my
For
parents.
me, that was Ozzy. Like he has this album called Tribute, and it's like a live album with Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
And it's like Randy Rhoads is my favorite guitar player of all time, and I learned like how to play that whole thing, and because he does everything live so much different than the recorded version.
Hmm.
And so I like didn't know how to play any of the recorded versions. I just learned how to play like his live stuff and all his little add-ons that he did in there. And I was way better at guitar when I was younger than I am now. I used to know how to play all of Randy's solos, not as good as him, but I knew how to play them. And I couldn't even come close to doing that anymore. Like I could do the start of like Mr. Crowley solo from muscle memory, but then I'd lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't touched a instrument in a very long time. Like I'll pick them up here and there. Like I'll get the itch, and I'll sit down and play, and like I can feel my fingers just being like, I don't want you to do this. So I'll just put it down. Or I'm just so bad at it now that I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer when I try to play something that I used to be able to play, and I go like, God, I used to be able to do that.
My wife always gives me shit because when I pick up my guitar, like my go-to, just because I've played it so much, is Ohio is for Lovers.
Okay.
So like
Sure.
she'll hear that da 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 da, and she just looks at me like, really? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's my go-to. Like it's the thing that I remember how to play and can
It's the warm
actually
up.
play.
Okay.
Yeah, like let me get there. But
Yeah, I have mine is like this. I have this little like bossa nova riff that me and my buddy wrote like years ago, and it's just a fun little finger picky, like weird chord, weird sounding kind of thing. And I never forget it. And when I pick up an acoustic, it's like the first thing I want to play for some reason. Is like this little bossa nova like little lick. It's fun.
that's one thing that I never was able to do, but I really wish I was able to do, is like the more like finger picky, like each individual string, like kind of like those like weird, kind of like the intro to Walk Away, like that intro
Okay,
that you play. Like I've
that's all with
just
the pick though.
yeah, like I've never been able to play that kind of stuff for some reason.
Mm,
I don't
gotcha.
know what it is, but my brain just doesn't allow me to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of like string skipping in that, and you have to be like pretty accurate. It's a lot of jumping around, so it's a lot of muscle memory of like jumping exactly to where you need to.
That's always the issue, is that skipping the string. Like I always hit the string below it, and it throws it all off, and I'm like, I give up.
Yeah, I mean, it takes everybody practice, you know?
Which I mean, being a dad now, I don't really have that time, that time to
Yeah.
pick it up
The
and practice.
finger picking took me a long time to pick up, and I'm still not great at it. Um, but even like I have this song called Broken where there's like a finger picking part in the middle of it, and when I play it live, I have to like set my pick down on top of my guitar and switch and finger pick it and then pick up the pick again. And I have buddies who can like hold the pick like somehow like weird like tucked in their finger, and they can finger pick while holding the pick, and then they just like switch and grab it again.
Oh
And
wow,
I cannot for the I just set it on top of my guitar, and I
I
just
would probably do
hope
the
to
same.
God that it's still there when I look down and I need it again.
My luck, I would drop it, and then I'd be like, well, I'm screwed now.
Yeah, I bought a one of those like it's like a little sleeve that goes on the mic stand
Yeah. Yep.
that like hold has little picks sticking out of it just in case.
Yep.
And I've never actually had to use it, but I always worry my guitar pick's gonna like slide off my guitar, and I mean, but luckily an acoustic guitar is just like a little big little shelf right here.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a nice big shelf, and it's tucked against your body, so you can kind of just
Yeah,
hold it close so that it doesn't fall.
yeah.
Yeah. When I got into music and playing guitar, my parents actually bought a guitar from my cousin that she didn't want, and it was a righty, so they had to get it switched, and it was a Jackson,
Mhm.
and they hid it under their bed. And when they were like, oh, like Christmas was coming up, and I would always snoop around the bed because I knew where they would hide it.
I did the
So
same exact
they would go away. I would grab that thing and I would just play it until they were coming home, and I would just tuck it back in, and they had no idea.
and just all surprised on Christmas.
Yep. And they gave me like a little, it was like a little combo amp. It was a custom. And that thing sounded like a soda can. But it was great because I could turn up the gain, and it had that like little punch to it that every electric guitar player wants when they first pick it
Yeah.
up.
I mean, I think my little crate amp was pretty similar. Like the gain just went way too high, higher than you'd ever need it, to where your guitar would just sound like a wall of static.
Yeah.
And there's like no notation anymore. It's just all just punch.
Yes, yes. And then when you finally get like a legitimate amp, like when you get the half cab and you have like the individual head and you're messing around and you feel that for the first time, you're like, how did I play on this little combo amp for so long?
Yeah, I remember I moved from the crate 15-watt amp to wanted to play music with friends. Like, Mom, I have like a friend who's a drummer. Like I want to play with him, and this thing's not loud enough. And then I think it was like a 150-watt line 6 212 like combo amp.
Yeah.
And we used that for a while, and then I graduated from that. My first tube amp that I bought was a PV Valve King, and to this day I think that thing sounded great. For like a $300 tube head, it sounded great.
I think my buddy has that same exact PV. I think he still has it.
I thought it was a great amp. I wish I still had it.
That thing was a really solid rig. I mean, we played with that when we were in a band together all the way up, like when we were in our teens and way up until our like early 20s, I think. He still had it and played through it, and it still sounded great.
Yeah, I mean, PV has always made good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with a PV.
Yeah, I used a 5150 with the Roman numeral 2 on it for a really, really long time. It's the same thing as a regular 5150. It just has an alternate EQ for clean and distortion. But I used that for a long time. And I remember going to pick it up, and the dude was like, I found it on like Craigslist or something. And the dude was like, oh, do you want to try it out, like, and see how it sounds? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I started like riffing some metal stuff. And he was like, oh, like, you listen to metal? And I was like, yeah. And then, and he's like, oh, I play in a metal band. And I was like, oh, what are you guys called? And he was in this old metal band called Abigail Williams.
That sounds kind of familiar.
They were pretty big at the time. They were very like synthy and like dramatic. But they were great. I was never super into them, but I just thought it was crazy that it was like, oh, that's from a band that like I've heard before that's like successful in the metal world.
Yeah.
And I always remembered that I got that amp off of him. And then I had picked up one of my first like 4x12 cabinets was a crank cabinet.
Oh man, those were so sweet.
Yeah, I had a Frankenstein cabinet they were like Texas Heat 150s in it, and went to pick it up and bought it off of Bury Your Dead.
Well.
And I was like, how am I finding this stuff?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I had that for a long time. I think it's still in like my musical family. Like I sold it to a friend, and I think he sold it to a friend, and it's like still in the Southern California.
Yeah, we had a lot of that going on when my buddy who played guitar in my bands when I was in high school and shortly after, he would buy guitars off of people like around us, and then they would like trade guitars, and he just kept getting these guitars and then just like swapping them around, and it was just like, where are you finding all of these?
Yeah. There was, God, what was it in where I live? There was a group on Facebook called the SoCal musicians exchange, and people just like, it was like everybody that was selling their instrument was like also open to like a trade.
Yeah.
And whether it meant like cash on top or something like that, like nobody on there was getting rid of their guitar and like didn't want to get another one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it was just like I knew people that just cycled through guitars and amps like crazy. Um, but then I got the amp that I have now. I mean, I had a lot of amps growing up, but the amp I have now is like an orange rocker verb that I've had for God over 10 years, and when and got off another band, and when I went to go pick that up, it ended up being this guy named Ernie. He used to play guitar for this band called As Blood Runs Black,
Oh yeah, I know
and
them.
I went to go pick it up, and I was like, I knew his name was Ernie because it was on the Musicians Exchange, and I just didn't put two and two together. And I drove up there to get it, and I was like, no, oh, you're like Ernie, like you're the Ernie.
That's
And
crazy.
he was the nicest dude. He actually let me. It was so funny because that amp he wanted, I remember like $1,800 for it, and I saw it on Facebook for forever, and nobody was biting on it. And so I hit him up, and I was like, hey man, I, I'd love to get this amp off you, but I can only give you like $1,200 for it. And he was like, it's a little bit too low. And I was like, okay, no worries. Just thought I'd, shoot my shot. And then he hit me back up like a week later, and he was like, yeah, let's do 1,200. And I was like, all right, bro, here's the deal. I don't even have all the money right now. Like, I was like, I can drive up to you and give you like $400 every paycheck until I buy the amp.
Yeah.
And he was like, sure, no problem. And I drove up, gave him $400 the first time, and he let me drive home with the amp.
Oh wow.
And I was like, I did not expect. I thought I was just gonna give him $400, and then I drove up the next 2 weeks, and then the 2 weeks after that, and I've had that amp for like 10 years, and I love it. And it's the first time I've ever had an amp that I felt like was like my end game. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
need another one.
Yeah.
Like,
Orange makes really good stuff.
yeah.
So what inspired you to go towards your solo stuff and like really branch off of like playing in bands and just do your own thing?
Um. Well, I always. It's funny because I grew up like listening to metal and stuff like that, and then I remember my buddy Hunter, like a long time ago, showed me dashboards like MTV Unplugged,
Yep.
and I'd never really been into anything like that, and I just saw this room of all these people like singing every word to every song, and I was like, that's incredible. Like, that's what I want. And I'd always had an interest in that for a long time. Like, it was funny, but at first all I wanted to see was people throwing their arms around like in the pit having a good time, and I was like, it's a good show if people mosh.
Yep.
And like we'd all finish the show like, oh, did you see how many people were moshing? That was so sick, dude. And I sort of graduated from that to like, man, I really just want to write lyrics and I want people to sing with me. And so I'd always had an interest in it ever since, I was like maybe 14 years old or so. And then one of my first girlfriends like broke up with me or something, and my buddy who was a recording engineer lived like right down the street, and I was super upset, and I wrote this song like this. It just like poured out of me, and it was not good, and it just poured out of me. And I hit him up and I was like, hey bro, I'm like going through something right now. I just wrote this song, can I come over and record it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I went over and recorded it, and I was probably 16, and that was like first song I ever recorded for this kind of music. And like I'd always wanted to do it but still had this love for metal, and like I said earlier, like I was writing songs but they just felt like other people's songs, like they didn't feel like my songs.
Yeah.
um and then I was filling in for my buddies play in this band called Movements, and
Yep.
I was filling in on guitar for them, and it was sort of like in talks of like whether or not was gonna be a permanent member or something, and I was interested in it, and then they were like, all right, let's try to write some music together. And right around that time, I had written the song "Avoid the Blame," and I had no interest in writing their music. And I felt like I just found my thing, and I was like, I just want to write this music. And so I kind of told them like, hey, like I kind of just want to like take myself out of the running for this. Like I don't want to waste your time. Like I'm much more invested in this. Um, and so I dove like headfirst into that, and I just played every show that anyone offered me, no matter how far away it was. I mean, within reason.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm not gonna drive to New York for one show, but like I would drive like 6, 7, 8, 9 hours to play one show.
yeah,
Fucking 10 kids, you know what I mean? And I loved it. It was, and I remember specifically the first time I had a room full of people singing all the words to my songs, and I was like, it was like the best day of my life. Like I couldn't believe, like it felt like what I had seen Dashboard do on MTV Unplugged. I was like, I did that.
yeah,
Like, and it was just the best feeling, and I was like, I gotta chase that.
yeah. I tell people all the time, like you can understand like what that feels like and have like an idea, but nothing can prepare you for when it actually happens, and you're just like, whoa. Because it
It's
like the first time that it happened to me, like it wasn't on my own. I was in a hardcore band called Common Ground, and we booked this little weekend tour, and it was like I'm in Pennsylvania, so we went to like Syracuse, New York.
sure.
We went to some college in, like, I think it was called Oneonta or something, and
Yeah.
then it was, hey, I have that same headset.
Oh, there you go. Logitech.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm getting into.
and then we played like a college. So we played in Syracuse, and it was like these dudes that booked us. They had like we showed up, and they were like in like Hatebreed jerseys and Sick of It All jerseys, and we were like, oh, like this should be cool. Like they're just gonna go off, and it's gonna be fun. And we had this intro that we would play. It was just like a slow build, and then we would yell our band name, and then it would like kind of go into like a breakdown sort of thing. And I remember when we got to that part, everybody in the room just rushed to us and
Yeah.
just screamed it. There were people like 5 inches from my face. And then
Yeah.
like we played our set, and I saw people coming up and singing, and people were screaming at me, and I was like, this is wild. Like I'm in a whole other state,
Yeah.
and people are
It,
singing the songs that we wrote. Like this is crazy.
it's the best feeling. And the internet fucking kind of gave us that.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Crazy.
Because that was in like the early days of Facebook when we were
Yeah.
doing all of that. So and
There's no way that that would have ever happened without the internet. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
you would have had to have played there before.
yeah, exactly. And it's crazy to like, I couldn't even imagine like being in your position, writing the songs that you do, and going to play them and having that happen, and just like I can't even fathom what that feels like.
It definitely like took me by surprise when the first time that happened, and it was like somewhat local, so it was nice to feel like I had, my like home community like kind of behind me, and then I feel like every show from there on out just got better and better and better, and like, of course, there's shows that suck, but everybody has those.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some less than optimal shows that I've played in my lifetime. Of you wake up, you go, you like already have a semi bad day, and you're just waiting for that show to just make it better. And you get there, and it's just like like front of house is terrible. You just can't play, and like people aren't into it. Everyone's just kind of standing around with their hands in their pockets, just like miserable, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. I had this one gig in Anaheim, and I remember it was sort of right after I'd picked up like I'd had a manager for the first time, and he'd started telling me, like, I'm sure you guys grew up with, like, the promoters that are like, hey, do you want to play this show with this band? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, cool, just sell 50 tickets. And then they don't care whether or not you bring 50 people. They just want $500.
Yep.
And so, I had been doing those. That was like the only way to play shows at
100%.
actual venues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing that. And I remember I had a manager, and he was like, all right, we're not doing that anymore. Like, any person that asks you at a venue to, like, play a show, and he's like, first of all, you just send them to me, and I'm just gonna tell, like, if they say, hey, like, can you, like, sell 20 tickets, like, I'll just tell them, oh, that's funny, like, you asked, I was gonna ask you to pay us $200. And, like, and so we just started doing that, and then we started getting paid to play. And then the singer from Secondhand Serenade, you know that band?
Yep.
So he was doing an acoustic set at this venue called The Grove in Anaheim, which is like 3,500 cap. And I was like, okay. And he offered for me to direct support him on that show. And I think it paid like $500 or something. And I was like, okay, I've never made $500 playing music before. Like, this is going to be awesome. It was on Halloween weekend, and it was on Game 7 of the Dodgers World Series.
Oh my god.
And I shit you not, I'm looking forward to this show. 3,500 cap venue. There, guaranteed, was less than 50 people there.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
I have like pictures of like this giant auditorium with like 10 people standing at the front of the stage, and like that's it.
That's the worst. I can't say I've played like that sort of show, but I have had like a show where we've played with like big local acts where like they are like basically on the verge of getting signed by there was a label around us. I don't know if you've probably heard of them or not. CI Records. I think they're out now. They had August Burns Red on them for quite a while before they branched off. But that was like, if you got to CI Records, it was like you basically made it.
Yeah.
And then it just like you played shows with these bands, and you were like, this is going to be great. There's going to be so many people. It's going to be fantastic. A lot of people are going to see us. And you play, and there's 5 people. The minute you get off stage, this crowd of people just comes in the door, and you're like, okay.
Damn it.
where were you?
Yeah, it's I actually had an experience like pretty similar to that, but recently. It was something that upset me in the moment, but it also, like, I don't know, was a chance for me to like take a minute, like, I mean, essentially what had happened was I went on tour to Europe with Tyler from Youth Fountain, who's like the nicest dude I've ever met. And we were playing in Manchester, and I'd only played in Manchester one other time, and I looked at the ticket sales for the night of the show, and it was like nearly sold out. And it was nothing crazy. It was like maybe 300 people, something like that. Small venue. But I was like, I'm halfway across the world, and like this is my headlining thing, and there's fucking 300 tickets sold for this. Like, this is crazy. And then I had this thought of, wait a minute, I've played Manchester before, and there was like 10 people here. And I was like, there's no way these 10 people, like, each brought 30 of their friends. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize that all of these people were here to see Tyler.
Uh.
And I was like, I don't know, I was really like upset and down on myself for a long time. And then like he played and had just the best show. Like he had such a great show. And right after he finished, like maybe half the room left. And I was kind of bummed about that. And then I sat down and I thought to myself, like, like Tyler's never been over here to Europe. And like, I need to just take this day to just be like so happy that he got to have this experience and like he got to have this show across the world, 300 people in a room singing every word to his songs. Like, I
Yeah.
gotta just think that that's so incredible for him and like not worry about me. And I think once I got into that mindset, I went up and had like a great show and I loved that show. But it's still like in the moment, it felt really shitty that like everybody was like nobody came to see me, and I
Yeah.
was like, until I found that new perspective on it, I was pretty bummed out. And then once I'd sort of changed my perspective, I thought I had a fantastic day.
Yeah, it's weird, like especially being like a solo artist and you like all eyes are on you, and like it kind of I would imagine like it kind of gets to your head a little bit. You're just like, yeah, these people are here to see me. But
Mm,
the thing with like the like being in a music scene and like having friends that are musicians and meeting people along the way playing shows, like everybody just wants to see each other like do well. And like that's probably the thing that I miss the most is like watching friends bands sets, watching them kill it, watch everybody go nuts, and then seeing them afterwards and being like, dude, you guys killed it, and then doing the same thing and then coming back and then being like, dude, you guys killed it. That's something I miss the most. Is just bands watching bands.
yeah, it was just a great like it was just a great community that like we had for a really long time. I feel like the metal and hardcore world sort of in the early 2000s had that like more than any other music scene.
100%,
Like
yeah.
we just had like the golden era of like deathcore and hardcore, and like there was just like, dude, when I was in high school everybody was in a band.
Yep.
Like everybody was in a band, and you didn't have to ask your friends, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You just knew where the shows were,
Yep.
and you knew everyone was going.
100%.
Like, and you just drove and you showed up and you're like, oh, like, what's up, bro? And like that was it.
Yep.
And
Everybody stands outside, waits for the bands to start. Then you all go in, and everybody's doing their own thing. Like that's stuff that I really really miss. Is like just the camaraderie and like the community.
yeah, and not even like, and it's just even people like you don't know. Like, I mean, sure, there's like dickheads at shows, but like, I mean, even I'd have like so many times where I'd just be like smoking a cigarette, and someone's like, "Hey, can I bum a cigarette off you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, bro. Like, take two." And they'd be like, "Oh, who are you here to see?" And I'm just like chilling, talking to them, and I'm like, "Yo, let me get your number. Let's go to another show together." And like now that's a homie,
Yep.
And
Yeah.
like it just doesn't. I feel like it doesn't happen like that anywhere else.
I mean, I don't think they're like, at least where I'm at. I'm in like a small rural area, but like there used to be a ton of venues around me, and like every weekend there would be shows that went on. But I feel like now there's just none.
Dude, the boomers shut it down, man. They shut it down, dude.
I
We
mean,
had so many venues
the
around me, and there's like punk bands, and one day like an adult would be there, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is crazy," and then they'd like make a complaint, and then like not doing shows. We had like all these teen centers that had shows every weekend,
yes.
and then so one by one, they're just like, we'd hit them up, and be like, "Hey, we want to book a show," and they're like, "No, we don't do that anymore."
It's
God. We used to, one of my favorite venues like locally growing up was, there was this place that opened called Famima, and it was like an Asian mini mart, and somebody figured out that they had like a big empty room in the back and asked them, hey, can we rent out this room in the back for the night and like throw a concert? And they were like, yeah, sure. And it was like $100, and you got to rent out that room for like 5 hours,
That's
and
insane.
you could fit maybe 150 people in there, like packed in tight.
Yeah.
But it was just an empty room. There's no PA system, there's no stage, there's no nothing. And there was shows there every single weekend. Like once that one person figured it out, it was just like we were just doing concerts in the back of a fucking Asian mini mart. And it was like a concerts in the fucking back of a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like it
Yeah.
was just all hidden in the back. It was almost like a speakeasy for like metal concerts.
Dude, we've had a couple of those. There was one that was in the city. Uh, it was called Skid Row Garage, and it was exactly that. It was a garage, and there was the one time me and my friend were driving somewhere, and I was just on my phone looking at something, and Hawthorne Heights made a post, and they were like, "Hey, so and so canceled the show at this venue in Pennsylvania. Is there any place that we can play?" And that dude was like, "Yeah, come to the garage." So they literally came to this garage. Everybody that was going to that show showed up to the garage, jammed in, and they played the Silence in Black and White from front to back. We had people crowd surfing on a mattress that was like pressed against the ceiling.
Yeah.
It like you couldn't even move at all, but it was the most fun that I think I probably ever had.
Yeah. I have like I guess a similar um I used to play in like this hardcore band called Lesser, and we were starting to get a good fan base, locally, and we played like a backyard show, and our homies band was playing right before us, and they just finished, and the cops showed up, and we were like, and it was such a good show. There was like 100 people for this backyard show, and we are like, fuck, this is such a good show. Like, I can't believe we don't get to play. And then someone was like, hey, we can move it to my garage, and we were like, okay. And all the 100 people went to a different location to continue the concert, and they showed up, and it's like a one-car garage,
Yeah.
like full of crap. And outside of the drum set and like our amps, like I was like in the corner, like sitting on a pile of shit with my guitar, and we probably packed maybe 15 people, and everyone else was just outside because they couldn't fit inside the garage. And it was like one of my favorite shows I've ever played.
There's nothing quite like those. Just, I mean, we've played a ton. There was a guy that would throw basement shows, and like we would get like some pretty like big bands from the area down there, and like they had a pretty big following, and they were pretty like they were known to get a little rowdy. And one of the shows, an old friend of mine picked up this guy and slammed him into the HVAC vents on the ceiling. But they didn't care. They were just like, yeah, whatever. We're renting this place, so we don't care. And at the time, like, you didn't have to care because, I mean, it wasn't like it is now where, like, the single complaint, everybody just shuts it down immediately.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was a ton of cool, like, we used to throw shows in like a ballet studio in Whittier that was called Studio Danza, and it was like there's like mirrors, like the whole room is mirrors because it's a dance studio, and there's like kids moshing, and it's like, this is such a bad idea. Like, this is such a bad idea. And there were shows there every weekend.
Yeah, those were the days, man, of just going, like, you didn't have to worry about anything. It was just, you knew exactly what your weekend plans were. You were like, oh, so and so's in town, we're going.
Yeah.
But now the cost to even get into a show is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't like paid to go to a concert in a long time. Outside of like, I saw like James Taylor a couple of years ago, and that was like a big concert. But like, as far as like local shows, like 300 to 500 cap venues, I
Yeah.
haven't like paid to get in one for a long time. But what is it, like $25-$30 to get in?
I mean, not
Or
like,
am I out of touch?
I mean, it could be, but I'm talking like even like a, if I wanted to go see a band that I used to listen to like 15 years ago, and they're doing like a
Oh,
reunion,
50, $60, right?
and it's like it's more than that.
Oh, Jesus.
It's like 100 to $150. I'm like,
Wow.
there is one person that I've paid $100 to see, and that was the Smashing Pumpkins, and I paid that because they were the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, rightfully so.
But like I there's so many shows that I would love to go to around me, like to the venues that I used to go to, but every one is like $100. I'm like, I
That's
can't
crazy.
I can't justify it. I just
That is
can't.
crazy.
So
Yeah. $100, I better be getting to see like Third Eye Blind or something.
I didn't even pay $100 to see Third Eye Blind. I paid like $20 to see them,
Jeez.
and that was a wild show. It was like last minute. Me and my wife were just like, let's go. It was at a college, so we just like bought tickets. It was like $20 a piece, and they were so good.
Yeah, I've seen them once, and they were incredible.
Yeah, I'd love to go see them again. They were way, way better than I expected.
Yeah. Oh,
His,
yeah.
his voice sounds exactly like the record
Yeah,
live.
he's great. I remember they opened up with like Graduate, and like all the lights were down, and they just played that little guitar riff, and then like a single light like shined on him, and he's like, "Can I graduate?" And it was so sick.
Oh man, I miss
great.
those days. Do you ever feel like when you're trying to write new music or sit down and actually, have a writing session, do you ever feel like you're stuck in a corner to like write songs about the same thing?
Not to write songs about the same thing, but I do, because I mean that's what I love writing music about. Like I love like writing music that in a way is music that like people feel, but they can't figure out, like they can't put the words together to like piece together how they feel. And so I love like writing songs where people go like, man, he just like pulled the words like right out of my head,
Yeah.
and like this is exactly how I feel. Because for me, that was what made me write this kind of music in the first place. Was like I was like in a dark place, and I'd like heard like a Dashboard song, and I was like, this dude is writing this song about me. Like I'd never felt that. Like I'd grew up listening to metal my whole life, and I'd never had like a metal song that like pulled me out of like a dark place. And so Dashboard did that for me, and I was like, that's what I want to do. Is I want to like, for people that feel like they're the only one that feels that way, I want to show them that they're not. And but I have felt like stuck in a sense of writing where I know I have to put out, like, I mean, that's why it took me so long to put out new music. And the label was like hounding me, we need new music, need new music. And I'm not like the kind of person that can just sit down and like force that.
Yeah.
Like I have to have something like going on in my life that I'm like, that like has to come out of me, or I'm gonna lose my freaking mind.
Yeah.
And so that's why it took so long to do another record. I mean, among other reasons, like COVID kind of like took the wind out of my sails. And
It took the wind out of everybody's sails there.
yeah, I felt like I'd worked, my whole life, like you said, like everybody we knew that was friends of ours were in bands, and I slowly, one by one, saw them get signed and start going on tour, and I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And I saw all my friends get to do it, and I felt like I was like the last one. And right when it happened, I got signed, recorded a record, put out a record, and then like 3 months later, it was like the whole world shut down.
Oh
And
my god.
I don't think I ever fully came back from that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the drive and like just that grind mentality sort of left me and never really came back. But I mean, writing music like this last record that I put out, like it's short. It's like 9 songs or something. It's really 8 because one of them's a cover. Um, but I felt like I told the story that I wanted to tell. Like there was no more to say. So, and I know the label, even my manager was like, "Can you like, come on, like the formula. Like, can't you just like pump out like 4 more songs?" And I was like, "No, like it's done." Like I said what I wanted to say in 8 songs. Like anything else is just going to be filler. I have these 8 songs that I'm really, really proud of. Like, don't make me do 4 that I don't like.
That's one thing as like a consumer when I hear a band put out a record or a solo artist put out a record and it's 12 to 16 songs. I like records that I can listen to from front to back and not skip a song.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you your flowers here. Both of your records are exactly that for me because from front to back they're easy listens, they catch you, and there's never a moment where I feel like there's a filler song.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I tried really hard to not do that. And I mean, that's why the second record is so short. Um and I mean, the second record like almost like freaking like killed me trying to get that done. Like I feel like I had to I don't know, when I write these songs, like I like take myself like somewhere else,
Yeah.
to like get in that mindset. And it was at a point where I felt like everything was pretty good, but like I had to write this record, and I almost feel like I like maybe like even like self-sabotaged a little bit so that I could get into that mentality to get this record done. And it was like, I don't know, it was a pretty like mentally exhausting experience, and that was part of the reason that it's short too, is like I got 8 songs in, I felt like it was complete, and I like told myself like I can't do anymore. Like I'm done. And my manager kind of fought me on it, and I just told him, I was like, there's nothing you can say that's going to get me back in the studio like to do more of these. Like this is it. And then so I called the owner of my label, and he was really understanding too. And he told me too, like, hey, yeah, like, let's put it out, and if you want to take a break, like, you can take a break, like, and if you want to do more music, like, send me the demos, and like we'll put them out, like we can still do it, like, but that's kind of what it is. That record was really hard for me to do.
I also like from what I've seen, like I like to watch a lot of documentaries about some bands that I'm into, and from what I hear, like the sophomore album is the worst one to write because it's like when you write your first one, it kind of just naturally comes out. There's no
Yeah.
like pressure. You can kind of take your time and do what you have to do. But then when you're writing your second one, it's all the pressure's on. You have like these, there's deadlines or whatever, or there's people, asking you about the songs, like what's the progress. You're in the studio, you're like all eyes are on you, and like there's this expectation that you feel like you have to meet,
For sure.
and
100%.
it really like gets into people's heads where they're just like, I can't I can't write these songs that I want to write because I'm just so up against the wall.
Yep, I 100% feel that and relate to that entirely. And then there's also the added pressure of like if you put out a really good first record, there's the pressure to make that second record just as good, if
Mm-hmm.
not better.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, when I did my second one, I've always hated when a band will come out of the blue, put out this awesome record, and I love it, and I just want more of it. And then they do their second record, and it's way different.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just wanted more of the first one.
Yeah.
And so I really, for my second one, wanted to give more of the first one.
I
And even stripped back, I told my producer that I even wanted to strip it back more than the first record was. Like, I wanted to go back to my roots and just keep it as much vocal and guitar as we could, with like very light production compared to the first one. And yeah, I'm really proud of what we did.
Yeah, I think you did exactly that on that second record. Like it's I can definitely tell like when I'm listening to the first one and then it goes into the second one. I can tell like the production's there, but it's definitely uh it's a bit of a bigger sound if that makes sense, but not like instrumentally. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but like as a person who is definitely a fan of yours, um, listening to that first one and going to the second one, like it meets the expectations of what I would expect out of new music from you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like it's the second record has a little bit more atmosphere to it than the
Yeah,
first one
yeah,
does. Like, I feel like it feels bigger in that sense, and not just like there's a ton of instruments on here.
yeah,
You know, when I first started doing this, my first like demo that I put out was just acoustic and vocal. Like, I went and recorded them at the same time in one take, and that's what got me that first room full of people singing my songs back to me. And for this record, I definitely wanted to take a step more towards that direction. Like, we
yeah,
put out those two singles, Breathe Again and Do You Like That You Love Me? And remember, and I love those songs, but I remember telling my producer going in to do the rest of it, like, hey, like, we sort of took things in this direction from the first record, and those songs went farther in that direction, and I want to go much farther back the other way for everything else.
yeah,
Like, we can have those two songs that feel big and big band, but everything else, I want to strip it back. Um, and there was so much. I wrote, almost that entire record, like, in the studio. Like, they booked me my recording, and I showed up with essentially nothing,
wow.
and was like, all right, let's write some songs.
That's wild. I couldn't imagine doing that. I've never been in that kind of position to show up to a studio and be like, all right, you're gonna write a record, have fun. Like I couldn't imagine the
I mean,
pressure.
I was there for 12 hours a day for a month straight.
That's insane.
Like,
I
the
don't think
first
I
two
could do that.
weeks was just writing and demoing, and then the next 2 weeks was actually tracking.
Yeah. Now when you wrote the record in the studio and you're sitting and brainstorming lyrics or lyric like the patterns and stuff like that, are you sitting there with the producer and
Oh yeah, and he
you're
wants to kill me the whole time. He's the best. He's the best dude. His name's Anton, and he's the best dude. 10 out of 10. Only want to work with him if I have the choice. Um, but I know, and he knows, going, because he did my first record too. Part of it. Um, he knows going into it, it's like pulling teeth.
yeah,
So he
which is
knows what he's in
good.
for, but he knows that we're gonna get something great, and I think he does a really good job of, like, I mean, this second album that I did was like, these recording sessions are like, I mean, they were like therapy sessions.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And there was days where I couldn't get anything done.
yeah,
And we just like talked about life and music and whatever, like, to try to get me in a better headspace to like get something done. And then he was a huge help, and I could have not done it without him.
that's awesome to hear because like that's what I wanted to be. That's actually what I went to school for. I went to school for recording engineering and sound engineering, and I wanted to be like the person in the studio with the bands, like sitting there writing music with them or like producing and recording and mixing and doing all of that stuff. Like that's what I wanted to do. But it sucks that right when I was doing that and going to school for it, anybody could do it.
Sure.
So it's like if you just go out and buy an interface and spend a little money on Pro Tools, like you have it all right there and you can just learn how to do it yourself.
And the difference maker is the artists that you're recording and you're producing. Are they putting out great music?
Yeah.
And how big of a part of the process were you in that?
Mm-hmm.
And how many people hear that? You know what I mean? Is this band, and does one of the bands you recorded get signed? And do they tell their label like, no, I want to work with my guy?
Yeah.
And then the label loves what you did, and then they send more bands to you.
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of how it. It's just kind of how it works. And like my producer too, that both of the people that I've been going to as long as I can remember, one of them is Anton, and another one of my buddies, his name's John. He sings in this band called Point North. He recorded the half of my first record, and both him and Anton have been doing this for as long as I've been playing music. You know what I mean? Like they've been recording and they've been writing songs, and to them, like songwriting is like a muscle that you just have to use constantly.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not what songwriting is.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you boil down songwriting from a musician standpoint and a producer standpoint, like as a musician, you're the artist. You're the one that's putting the art out with, the feelings or the traumas or
and you're the one that has to sing the song.
Exactly. So like your process is going to be much more personal, whereas as a producer, it's more of like a math equation, basically. Mm-hmm. It's like, 4 + 4 = 8. Yeah, we know how to do it. Come on. And I could see how that could clash with, artist and producer, or how that can be like the perfect pairing.
But what I think is so great about both of them is that they've both also been in bands their entire life. And so they, as much as they are in the mindset of, 4 + 4 = 8, they're also empathetic towards your side of things, which is a huge help. And, I'll write a line and run it by Anton and be like, what do you think of this? And he might look at me and just go, that's not it. You can do better than that. Or what do you think of this melody? And you go, nah, try again.
Yeah, it kind of pushes you to like get the best that you can out. So like that is nice.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I think comes from working with the same people for such a long time, is they know what you're capable of, and they're not willing to settle for less.
Yeah.
They're not willing to let you settle for less either.
Yeah.
Because half of this record I was just in the mentality of like, I just want to fucking finish this and be done with it.
Yeah.
And like, no, you're not finishing it until you give me everything you've got.
Yeah.
And so that, was a huge, huge help in making this record.
So there was a song in particular that I just, the more I listen to it, the more like I catch the lines and do, like exactly what you said earlier about you like to write these songs basically like for people to interpret or to like go through this process with you or themselves. I don't know how I missed it on like when I listened to the first record, because I listened to that a good bit. And the one night I came upstairs from the basement, I sat down on my chair and I went to YouTube, and I saw like in my recommended it was a live set of yours, and I was just like, oh, like I'm in the mood to watch a live set, like I'll click it and I'll watch it.
Sure.
So I was watching it, and I think it was the last song that you played, and you were saying that it was your favorite song that you've ever written.
Sure.
And I I don't know if you had said it on stage about what it was about, but you sang the song, and I found that afterwards. But I was like, hold up. So I went to the first record and I listened to the song in the recording, and I did some digging like on the internet, and I was just like, okay, like I read the lyrics probably 100 times, and as I listened to the song, like it just got more like it got more emotional for me because I couldn't imagine writing a song about that subject.
You're
So
talking about Harbor.
yeah, I'm talking about Harbor. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's my favorite song that I've ever written. Um, it was a hard one to write, um, but I feel like it was something that I had to do. Um, and it actually has a really great story to it. And I when I had first gotten signed to Pure Noise to do the first record, they sent me. I had a tour with this guy William Ryan Key,
Yeah.
and
Yellow Card.
yeah, and it started in Georgia. And one of the guys that worked at Pure Noise, he had moved to Nashville, and so the label said, "Hey, we're going to send you out to Nashville for 2 weeks before your tour, and we're just going to set you up a bunch of co-writing sessions." And I was like, "Okay," and I was really nervous about that because I'd never done that before. I mean, I'd done writing sessions with my friends my whole life, but I never sat in a room with a stranger and done that. And so, uh, it's so funny. They say don't meet your heroes, and I had the opposite experience. I got to go over to Chris Caraba's house from Dashboard, and so I had this song for the longest time called "The Sun," and it I felt like if I told the story of what it was about, um, it hit people really hard. And if I didn't tell the story, the song had a really hard time standing on its own two legs. And so I told myself when I went into the session, I goes, okay, I'm gonna work on this song with Chris. He's the master of this. Like, I'm gonna tell him what it's about. I'm gonna work on it with him. And so when I played it for him, and then I told him what it was about, he looked at me and he said, "I don't think this is that song." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And "You're what you're telling me the song is about, and what the lyrics are very generalizing, and you're singing about that to you, but you're not singing about that to everyone else." And he said, I don't think this is that song. He goes, "I think this is a great song, and it's almost there. But," he said, "I think you still need to write that song." And so the song that I worked on with him was ended up being called "Fall Apart," and I love that song and I love that experience. And then when I went to Canada to record the rest of my record with Anton, is when I sat down and wrote Harbor, and I remembered what he said, and I just said I want to be a lot more specific and I want to be much more apparent that what this song is about.
Yeah.
And I still think I generalized a bit, but I think with a lot of the lines, I got the point across. Um, but I mean, that song essentially was, when I was 19 years old or something. I'm with, my wife now. We've been together for almost 14 years. Um, and when I was 19, we I played in this hardcore band called Destruction of a King, and we were leaving to
I
go on tour.
That's
Do you know that
insane.
band?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, those are good buddies of mine. Um, so I wasn't even in the band at the time, but they were doing a tour after I'd left the band, and they said, "Hey, we need someone to fill in for this tour. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." So the first show was in this town called Whittier, which is relatively close to us, and it was the first show of the tour. So my girlfriend at the time and my brother and my dad came to see me off because we were leaving for a couple weeks, and I was on stage playing, and I didn't see, but apparently Danielle had gotten like hit in the head,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I just kind of looked around and I didn't see her anymore, and I looked at my dad and I was like, hey, like where's, as I'm playing like heavy music, I'm like, where's fucking, Danielle, and and he went outside, which was on like stage right, and then I was like wondering what's going on, and he came back in and he just looks at me and like does this with his finger, and I just took my guitar off in the middle of the song and walked off stage, and her whole like eyebrow was like concaved,
Oh
like
shit.
the bones were completely shattered. And my dad, is a paramedic for 23 years, and all growing up my whole life, if I got hurt, he would ask me, is it you need to go to the hospital hurt, or is it I don't give a shit hurt? And I was like, it's I don't give a shit hurt. And he looked at me and he goes, well, we got to go to the ER like right now. And I was like, okay, not going on tour, not doing any of this. Let's go to the ER. And so we went there and walked. The craziest thing was going through all the, the separate rooms that you go in. Every room
Yeah.
she went into, I had to wait because they had to ask her if I did this to her.
Oh wow.
And we sat in the waiting room for 9 hours, and everybody looked at me like I did it,
Yeah.
and it was just a crazy feeling. Um, but then we'd got into one room, and they had told her that she was pregnant, and we didn't know that. So that's kind of how we found out. And it's been a long time, and I try not to think about it too much. But I just remember, not being ready for that.
Yeah.
And as soon as it happened, I was like, I got it. Like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Even though it was something that I had not planned on, it just happened, and I was like, well, that's what I got dealt. Let's do it. And so it actually became something I was really looking forward to. And through like the, she had to get like a crazy surgery, and not to be like super graphic, but they had to cut her from like ear to ear and like pull her whole like face down and like reconstruct her eyebrow.
Wow.
And through like the trauma of that whole surgery, he ended up miscarrying, and I didn't think that it was going to hit me like nearly as hard as it
Yeah.
did. um, and it was something that for a long time that I knew was sort of like a taboo subject,
Mm-hmm.
um, that people don't really talk about.
Yeah.
It's like even when couples get pregnant, they wait like 8 weeks
Yep.
to tell anybody because anything can happen.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it was something that I was really scared of, and then I got my hopes up, and then just immediately had it taken away from me.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was like a taboo subject that was something a lot of people had gone through, and I thought that nobody talks about this, but surely there must be people that feel the way that I feel.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the song Harbor about that. And I just remember, I would have never written that had Chris not told me that this is not that song, and that you still have to write that song. Um, and so I was able to sit down and do that, and that was one of the hardest like days in the studio.
I can't imagine because like, I've been in the position of like, you know, me and my wife had been actively trying to have a baby. We had gotten to the point in our lives where we said, you know what, it's time. Let's start, trying. And then we found out together. I remember the whole day, very clearly. And as soon as we found out, it was that thing of like, oh, like it became real. And like we had to think about, okay, what could go wrong? So naturally she just says, we have to wait to tell people, you never know what can happen. And as a guy, like it's hard to think about the things that are out of your control. So it's like, you're sitting there just with this weight on your shoulders until like the safe period has passed of like when you can start telling people and you can kind of let that off of your shoulders. And I'd be lying if I said that, leading up through the whole pregnancy, like I was excited, but like I just wasn't ready. But as soon as like I got to hold her for the first time and see her and actually see my child, like I could not imagine the weight of like something like that happening. And like I feel like this song hit me harder as a dad than it would have if I wasn't a dad.
For sure.
So when you say about like, you feel like you generalized the lyrics a little bit, there's a couple of lines that still hit me really, really hard. And it's not because of what the song is about. It's because you literally say exactly what anybody going through grief feels, where like, especially as a male, like you're taught and your natural instinct is to tuck the feelings away.
Sure.
Tuck it down. Don't show it. You're fine. Don't let anybody think that you're not fine.
100%.
So like when like the line, so damn hard to admit I'm not fine, hide the pain, but it's driving me insane that I know a part of me is gone. Now nothing seems real. Got this hole in my heart I can't seem to fill. Sinking down and I swear I'm going to drown. Like those lyrics transcend the subject matter and go to anybody who's ever like lost anything.
Yeah.
So like for reference, I've lost both of my parents. And my mother was a year and a half ago, and that's just a wound that has not healed yet. And I don't think it really will. But those lyrics, every time I hear them, it's just like, it's a punch in the gut because it's the exact way that I feel. And I feel like having them like generalized in the way that you have them actually helps the song just be more than the subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like, there's sort of like, yeah, it's sad, but I feel like there's a sense of, sort of like a light at the end of the tunnel when you hear a song like that makes you feel like you're not the only one.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and the way that you put it together with, the first, like the very beginning and then how it ends, it's so masterfully done. Like just from front to back, the way that song's constructed, it's insane. Like every time I listen to it and I like listen to the song and I listen to the lyrics and I read them, I'm just like, God damn, man, like this is just a song that everybody needs to hear, everybody needs to listen to, and just sit down and listen. Don't do anything else. Just sit down and just listen, read, whatever you have to do. Like it's just one of those songs that will just get you every single time.
Yeah, I was always sort of hoping that one would be like the sleeper.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that like my music, but then the people that like really love my music, I think it's all of their favorite songs.
I can see that. Yeah. I the minute that I like realized what it was about and like listened, like really listened to the lyrics, I actually sent it to my wife. This was actually a couple of days ago when I was doing like a deep dive on that song, and she was actually on her way to a baby appointment, which probably bad timing, but
Maybe a bit.
she's about ready to pop anyway. So we're past that stage, but this pregnancy is a little bit different with the fact that my mom's not here. So like it's a pretty big piece missing. So she had texted me back. She goes, "Well, I didn't plan on crying today." And I was like, "Sorry, but I had to like I needed to send it to somebody that would like understand it."
Yeah, it'll get you. It'll get you that one.
Yeah, it's a really really good song, and I the lyrics they're just so masterfully done.
It's hard for me to do that one live
I
every time.
I could imagine. I I could never do it. There's zero chance. Like I as like a creative person, I have these like this outlet that I can't get out because I've always wished that I could write like acoustic style of music. Like I really wish that I could do it, but when it comes to actually putting pen to paper and thinking of the way to say it, I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the tools that works the best for me is, and my sister's, a songwriter too, and she's not quite as far along in her career as I got, but something I always tell her is write down, just write down what you want to say. Just write it down, and then let's look at what you've written and think about like, okay, this is a good line for like a verse to be about. Like it's an all-encompassing sentence, and then let's just take it apart and let's say, how can we say it in a more interesting way, in a more artistic way? Like write a metaphor or write something, like this, like you're this way and you're this way, but I'm not. Or, to play like with a positive negative, like you just play with it and bring artistry into it. But always start with, this is what I want to say.
Yeah.
And that way it's right in front of you, and you can just brainstorm on, what is an interesting and relatable way to say that.
Yeah, like I can imagine, especially those tougher songs to write about, something that happened in your life that was really, traumatic. I can imagine like writing that down and getting it done would be very therapeutic.
Yeah, it feels almost like closure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something that, I don't know, it's never gone away for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, something that big.
It's gotten better.
Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. Is like, the feelings of those losses, they never do go away. Like they're always a thought, and I don't know if you and your wife plan on having kids or anything, but I know with my daughter, the older she gets, actually like it gets harder in a way because she will catch me like first thing in the morning. Like she just comes down from her room and she comes and wakes me up and she says, she's like, "Oh, good morning, Daddy." And then she says something about my mom that's just so out of left field. And it just catches me off guard and it just sets the tone for the day. That's just like, it's just,
they just say whatever they think, man.
yes, they just say, like, she does it all the time. Like, she just catches me or she says something, or like recently she's just started just crying. And we'll be like, "What's wrong? Like, why are you crying?" And she'll just say, like, "I miss my Nana." And I'm just like, oh. Yeah. And it's just one of those things, like, it's like I can get past it to a certain degree, but these things, like there's this constant reminder that's just living in my house that that
it's just something that you get better at living with.
yeah, you get better at dealing with it. You can kind of navigate it in your own way, and like there are days that are just you just wake up and you're like, well, this is just not my day, and you accept it, you get through it, and then hope that the next day is better.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that from time to time. I've been lucky. My parents are still together. They've been married for 40 years, which is not most people's case.
Yeah.
And I, think about sometimes, like, because I talk to my mom all the time, and I talk to my dad all the time. Like I call them just to say what's up, or like, something happened in my day and it made me think of them, and I call them, and they do the same thing. And I think about, that there's gonna be a time when that's not there.
Yeah.
And I can't even think about it.
It's really it never goes away, man. Like I'm a year and a half into not having my mom around, and like especially being a parent, like there something big happens in my daughter's life, the first person I can't wait to tell it to is my mom. And I like have that realization where I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
So like there's those moments that I don't think they'll ever go away, but they definitely don't they don't hit me as hard most days. Some days, there are just my brain just spirals and it's just a constant for the day, and it's like I can't get out of it. Yeah. But most of the time it's like I can navigate around it, and it's it's manageable.
Yeah. And it's I got to see my dad go through like my grandpa passing away.
Yeah.
And I think he took it really well, but I think it's partially because of my grandpa. And he just like before he went, he told my dad, like, I don't have anything else for you. Like, I don't have anything to teach you. I don't need to see anything else. I don't need to do anything else. Like, he straight up told him, he was like, if the machines start going crazy and I'm going, he goes, don't let them come in here and keep me here. It's like, I'm ready. Like, I've done everything I wanted to do. I've said everything I wanted to say. Just let me go. And that's what happened. And I think that helped my dad a lot, knowing that my grandpa was ready to go.
Yeah, it does help when they like make it easier when they prepare you for it. And like we had plenty of time where she prepared us for it because she had pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
So when she found out, she was headstrong, which is exactly who she was, of just get everything prepared so that when this time comes, it's easier for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, can we just hold on a second here? Like, we just got back from the hospital. You don't even get your full diagnosis yet. Like, pump the brakes. But she was just like, no, this goes to and I'm like I think about that, and like it doesn't make me sad. It makes me laugh. Just the minute that we got back, it was just like, hey, this when this time comes, this goes to this person and this goes to this person. It's just like, are you kidding me?
Hey, I mean, if you got shit to do, you got shit to do.
Yeah. So the cover song that you did,
sure.
I didn't realize what it was until much later. So
a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you think it was like an original song?
No. So I knew it was a cover. So I found it and I listened to it and I was like, man, like this sounds familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. And then I looked at, I think it was a post that you made, it might have been on Facebook, and you had said about The Last of Us, and I was like, no shit. So I went back and listened to it. What made you pick that song to cover?
The label.
Was it really?
To be the label, to be completely honest. But
Wow.
I mean, they. I mean, it's a fantastic song. And obviously, like, I love games. I love The Last of Us. Um, but the show came out. Me and my wife watched the show,
Oh, the
loved it,
show was so
and
good.
it was fantastic. And the label was like, like TikTok is really big, and it's all about like staying on top of whatever's current. If there's gonna be a big song, like we gotta catch it before, we gotta be on the ground floor. And that was that, episode 3. And it was like a very progressive episode. And it was like I mean, it was a beautiful love story. And that song was featured in it, and the Last of Us TV show was like the talk of the town, and
Oh
it
yeah.
just came out, and they were like, hey, like, we really think like you should do this cover. Like, we think that this song is gonna make its rounds because of the Last of Us. And I was like, yeah, I love the Last of Us, and I think it's a great song. Like, let's do it. But that was the first thing. It was so funny because I'm very I don't like doing covers.
Really?
Um,
That's
I, I,
that's an
yeah,
interesting.
I don't like it. I like playing my own music. Um, and a lot of times I feel like, I don't know, when it comes to covers, I feel like, I don't know, and I know it's just me, and I know I'm being stupid, but I feel like there's a sense of like, I think I can do it better than they did it. And
I can
like,
yeah, I
not
can see that.
not me personally, but it's like if someone were to ever cover like Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, it's like, how dare you, dude? That's Stevie Nicks, dude. You think you could do it better than Stevie Nicks did? Like, come on.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I don't like, I don't know. I know most people don't think that, but like, that's kind of always in the back of my head. And I don't like, the idea of like thinking someone would be like, oh, like, Corey thinks he can do it better than so and so, or like, I don't know.
yeah,
I like doing my own music. Like, they did it. It was fantastic. Why do I need to do it?
yeah. I
And
feel like there is like a with doing a cover and like picking a song to cover. There is like this expectation of like you better do a good job,
yeah,
and if you butcher it, you're
yeah.
you're
Every
screwed.
cover I've ever done and released, I have done because someone else told me I had to do it.
Well, I did not imagine that that was the case. I thought that was a pick of like.
It was a great choice, and I love that I picked it, and I love how it came out, and I think that I did it good enough.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you did it very. Actually, I find myself like humming it. Like if I just listen to it, or I listen to it like a day before, and I'm just at work, like I don't have my headphones in yet, I'll catch myself like humming it, and I realize that I'm humming it. I'm like, oh, well, okay, I see what I'm doing here. Like it's catchy. It the way that you did it definitely.
I do
Uh,
like that I got to do like this crazy like hair metal note at the end of the song.
yeah.
Just went full Motley Crue.
I got a good kick out of that. That was a that was I was as soon as I heard you hit that note, I was like, okay, Corey, I see you. I see you. Okay.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun to do. That only took like maybe 30 takes to hit that note.
That's that's not bad. I mean,
I mean, when you're in the studio, you do everything fucking a million times.
yeah. There's
I
always a
mean,
better take that you could do, even if you
they have,
already are happy with it.
especially when you have a producer who knows what you're capable of. Um, like, there's like tuning in the studio, and there's like, I mean, we don't do like auto tune or anything like that, but there
Yeah.
is like manual, like, pitch correction where it's
Yep.
like something just the tiniest hair, and they just nudge it up.
They just use
And
Melodyne or whatever the program is now. I couldn't even tell you.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about DAWs or anything like that. But I know they like crossfade shit, and there's a little X when I punch in, like stuff like that's it. That's the extent of my knowledge. But he knows that I can for everything I sing. He knows that I can get 99% there.
Yeah.
And so he won't let me do any less than that, even if it's like good enough. He's like it's good enough, but like you can do it better. So,
yeah.
like do it better. And I'm like, okay. And
all right.
I'm like, and then you get in your own head and you're like thinking about things you don't think about, and then you're doing stupid things.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're like, oh, it's as soon as they push the red button, it's like, God damn it.
It's the same thing of like when you play a video game and you get to this part and then you die and then you have to go like 15 minutes backward. You rush through that 15 minutes and you make these stupid mistakes, then you die and you have to go back and you're just like, what am I even doing?
Did you play Astrobot yet?
I'm probably about 3/4 the way through.
Okay, so you've done the where you're floating around in space and there's like the PlayStation symbols that come up and there's the challenge level.
Yes.
Bro. There is one, I don't remember if it's like X, circle, triangle, or square, because there's all 4.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I want to say triangle was the first one that I did. I think it was circle. And one of the levels is like a fire level. And the beginning of it, they give you like a rubber ducky, and you have to like, spray. Bro.
Yeah.
Like, 50 tries. At least 50.
Yeah.
Like, some of them I did them first try. And that one, I don't know why I got so hung up on that one. And, I'd done 75% of it 40 fucking times.
Yep.
But then you'd like, and then I'd start thinking about it, and they're like, I'd be like, oh, I haven't failed, like, at this part yet. And then I'd try it 5 more times, and then I'd fail at that part. And it got to the point of where every obstacle of the whole thing I had messed up at one point or another. And I was just like, oh my God.
Dude, what a masterpiece that
incredible.
Sony put out. It's insane.
It's
especially with
so
what just happened with Concord. Like, a game they put so much money and time into, and it just
200 million.
200. I think it was 250 million.
Yeah.
And it came out.
6,000 people bought it. Maybe?
It ate shit, and they took it off the store, and they're like, okay, we see, and then they're
Everybody refunds.
here's this, and it's just this masterpiece that has just been methodically done, and all these little references, and even the references that aren't Sony exclusives are just like, oh my God.
The favorite part about it is the controller.
It's
like,
they use it so well.
And the triggers and the sound. Like, I normally, when I play games, I hate when the sound comes out of the controller.
Yeah.
But I loved it for this one. Like, I couldn't imagine playing it without the way it was intended.
If there's any other game that has me lift up my controller and blow into it, I'm immediately like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I was like sitting there. It's like the little pinwheels are there, and I was like, oh no, the first time you do it was the God of War level.
Yes.
Where you blow the horn, and I was sitting there. I'm like, what? I kept pushing like square. And I'm like, what do I fucking? And then the little prompt came up, and I was like, nuh-uh. And I'm like, I couldn't believe that.
Any other game, I'd be like, this is stupid. Dude, the final levels that they do, like where you actually rescue like the piece to the ship,
and you get to be them. Yeah.
My God, the ghosts and the ghouls and ghosts one, the God of War one, the Uncharted, like, dude, it's so damn good.
There's a whole one where the whole level is like you like tilt your controller to roll around.
Yes.
You skip the whole level around.
And you have to break from the big ball to all the little ones, and then you build back up. Dude, it's It's so damn good. And when it came out, I told my wife, I was like, I need to get this game. Like, I need to get this. And
It's so good.
she just gives me this look like, you're really gonna spend $60 on that? I'm like, look,
It's so
I
good.
need to get it. So I told her, I was like, I'm buying it. So I got it, and I came home and I was playing it. And I was like, this is just incredible. Like, I think that it's probably gonna win Game of the Year.
Yeah, it might. And like Wukong was incredible. And I played Astrobot, and I was like, I think I like Astrobot. Like, I think I had more fun.
That's the thing. Like, it's just fun. Like, you don't have to think. It's just challenging enough at certain points, but it's not. It's so well done. Have you ever played Celeste?
I've heard of it though.
So I usually have a co-host with me. His name's Andy, and I've been screaming from the rooftops to tell him to play Celeste. And he's like, if I hear you play, like, talk about, yeah, it is
On Steam?
yes. So it's a game that you wouldn't think is like what it is. So it's like a platformer. It's pretty brutally hard at some points where like yes, yeah, it's like super pixely, and you navigate your way up this mountain. And there's like an actual story of like this girl, and she's like battling with like her inner voice, and she like doubts herself and has like this mental health battle of like, I'm not good enough, like I can't do it. And then like she comes to accept herself for who she is, and to be happy with that and comfortable in her own skin. And like the game, like my daughter came down and she like saw me playing it, and she goes, well, what are they saying on the screen? So I started reading like the text, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is too deep for you to understand. Like it's really, really good. If you can, get yourself to play that game, it's phenomenal.
People bring it up before. And there's this like TikTok page that I follow. These guys called Co-op 64, and they do. You'd probably love it. They guess like all these lists all the time. Like that they, it's two guys, and then they have a guy behind the camera, and he's like, "All right, guys, we're doing, top 10, single player games, and this list was created by, like, I don't know, gamer.com or something."
Yeah.
And then they guess, and then they'll guess like a huge one that's not on the list, and they're like, "What? There's no way that's not on there." But one of the guys, he has talked about Celeste or guessed Celeste.
Yeah.
Very often.
Yeah, I saw so many people talking about it, and I was at this point where I just don't know what to play. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bite down and just play this game. And I could not put it down. Like, it was so good.
Yeah.
And it caught me by surprise. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah, I'll have to try it out, cuz I'm obviously I love games with like really good graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also like very much appreciate like an art style, and like, they went for a specific thing for a reason. Like, I think one of the most beautiful games and like most beautiful stories I've ever played that had no words was Journey.
I've never played that game.
It tells the most beautiful story, and they make you tell the story. Like, because there's no words, there's no dialogue in the whole game.
Interesting.
And like, it's your own story. And like, they just give you like the visuals and the adventure to go on to tell it.
Wow, that's it. I've seen a bunch of people, like, it's on a bunch of lists of like some of the like best games of all time, and I'm like, I'll play it at some point, because I like direction sometimes, like with my games choice. It's like I've missed out on so many things, so it's like, what should I pick up and play? And I'll just go to that list and be like, okay, this is one that I'm gonna play.
That one's worth playing. It's not very long,
That's
but
perfect.
I also don't think it's very much money. But that one was great. Inside was another huge one for me. I loved
I've
Inside.
I've seen people talk about that as well.
Yeah, they did Limbo if you've played Limbo.
Yeah, I've played Limbo a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so Inside is the sequel to Limbo.
Okay. Have you ever played
Um,
Little Nightmares?
yeah, I love it. The
That
second one was great too.
that game was another one of those like ones that I saw somebody playing. I'm like, I'm gonna try that, and I
It was
played it, and I was
also
like, this isn't.
terrifying.
Yes, yes, it's like a different kind of fear. It's not like the typical, like it's just like that uneasy feeling. Like you just have that, like something's gonna happen. You're like,
The
I don't
first
know.
it reminded me there was a level that reminded me so much of Spirited Away. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I
There's like
I
you've
know
seen Spirited
Spirited.
Away.
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
What? But it was like the first level where you're almost like in like a bathhouse, but it's all these like gross monsters at tables like eating and shit, and
Yeah,
like shoving their faces, and you're like sneaking under the tables,
yeah.
and like it just reminded me, dude, you have to watch Spirited Away. Are you
I'll
kidding
have
me?
to look at that. That's the Studio Ghibli, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't like all of the films, but all of the Ghibli films, but there's quite a few that are Spirited Away is great. Princess Mononoke is goated. Um, Howl's Moving Castle is fantastic.
I hear a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle is incredible. I got when I was when I was in Europe with Tyler. Uh, we played at a record store, and they had like imported Japanese records that were soundtracks of
Oh,
Ghibli
that's
movies. And so I got, and they were like expensive, and I was like, man, these are pricey. And I talked to the people, and they're like, yeah, well, they're imported from Japan, like they're Japanese releases.
something about Japanese on like a video game or like a card is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, but so I got Princess Mononoke, and then because I loved it was probably the first. No, Kiki's Delivery Service was probably the first one I ever saw, but I
Hmm.
didn't know it didn't stick with me. It's like real fun and playful, and Princess Mononoke is like very serious, very like dark. And I loved that as a kid, and I also saw it when I was older. But that movie's always stuck with me, and I told the lady I was like, be real with me. Am I ever gonna like see another one of these in a record store? And she was like, probably not. And I was like, I'm gonna get it. Like I'm gonna get it. And I think it was like $80 or something.
Yeah,
And I was like, I
that's
have to get
the tough thing for me is like I saw the releases for the Resident Evil soundtracks on vinyl, and like the artwork is so sick, and I wanted them, but they were like $80, $85 when like on release. And I was like, I can't justify that on these vinyls. So a buddy of mine actually bought them, and then he sold them to me later because he didn't want them for half price.
Oh, there you go.
So I just scooped them up. I have 1 through 3 hanging on my wall, but then I have this big Resident Evil 7 that's like four records or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can't fit it into a frame, so I just
The only piece of art I've ever bought is that guy back there. Is the album artwork for Killing the Dream, which is like my favorite hardcore band of all time.
I can't
Um,
say that I've ever heard of them.
do you know Converge?
Yes.
So Jake Bannon, they're on Jake Bannon's label, Death
Okay.
Wish. They broke up many years ago. They were like in the era of like Have Heart verse Mongoloids Down to Nothing,
Okay.
like that sort of era
Yeah,
of
that's
hardcore.
that's my era right there.
Yeah. So they're like melodic hardcore.
Yep.
Um, but they have this beautiful discord of like their melodies are so beautiful, but the recording quality and the guitar tone, I mean the quality's great, but the guitar tone and their style of playing is so like sludgy and
Yeah.
messy. But then it's these beautiful melodies that are like just sound disgusting somehow.
Yeah.
and the lyrics are very much like, how the fuck could this happen? Like, and it's just pure, you just hear like anger, desperation, like everything from the vocalist. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
That's
good.
that's a
And I
really
thought that, so that's Jake Bannon did that artwork, and that's like an original Jake Bannon print. And I
ah.
remember, so I follow Killing the Dream on Instagram. They never post anything.
Yeah.
And one day I saw the singer is the only person who goes on the Instagram, and he posted and he was like, "Hey, I found a bunch of old Killing the Dream shit. Like, first person to hit me up gets it." And I looked at the post, and it said like 3 seconds ago, and I was like,
Hell yeah.
and then and then he sent it to me, and he, like, wrote a note like on the back of it, or he sent a handwritten letter that said like, "Hey, thanks so much for all the support. Like, it's crazy that anybody like even still listens to this. Like, thank you so much." And so the note is in like a laminated thing, like taped on the back of it.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I love that thing.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. Like there's a YouTube video that just released, I think 2 days ago. A guy that I've been talking to and getting advice from throughout like my whole like journey on YouTube, and like any question I have, I can message him and ask him, and he responds like relatively immediately, and like just like he's been so good to me. His name's Mort. His YouTube's Mort's Garage,
Okay.
and couldn't be a nicer guy. He helped this guy do a video of him picking up a Holy Grail item. So he bought a sealed graded stadium events. I don't know if you know what stadium events is,
No.
but it's like the absolute grail for a original Nintendo collector. To have it just the cartridge would be insane, but to have it sealed is
Yeah, yeah.
ridiculous, because they actually were to destroy them back in the day. Like, they recalled them, had them destroyed. The guy that was to destroy them took
Saved one or
took
something.
took like 3 of them,
Yeah.
and he sold them off like later down the road for like $40,000 or something like that. And the one that this guy bought was his last one, and it came from the guy that was ordered by Nintendo to destroy the games. So like the story behind it is just a wild story, and now he just has this piece, and he recorded himself with the guy like sitting down talking to him. He recorded himself like opening the package and like pulling it out for the first time, and like he got emotional because it was like, I guess when he was a kid, his dad, who wasn't really there for him, showed up to, I guess, his foster care house with a Nintendo, and his uncle and his dad sat there and played it, and he didn't get a turn. And he was like, what the heck? Like, I thought this was for me.
Yeah.
So the games that he got were Mario and stadium events. And like the story behind it's incredible. And like stuff like that, where like you can own a piece of like that story or that history, is like, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, even that print that I got, like, doesn't have anything like that. But I remember I'd never heard of Killing the Dream before, and I saw them. I went to go see, God, who was it? I think I went to go see Have Heart and Verse at this venue, Chain Reaction, down
Yep.
there where I live.
Yep.
And I think, oh no, it wasn't Have Heart. It was Verse, and it was Blacklisted's CD release show. It was Blacklisted, Verse, Mongoloids, and Killing the Dream. And I'd never heard of Killing the Dream before, and I walked in and they were playing, and I was like, this is the sickest shit I've ever heard. And I never got to see them again.
Wow, really?
I never got to see them. They broke up like pretty shortly after that.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so I have that. And I always wish I got to see him like, because I bought their albums and went home and listened to them. I know all the words, I know every song, and I never got to like go to a show and jump on top of somebody and yell the words. Like, I
Yeah.
never got to do that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I'll always love that. And a lot of my it's funny, and people always I've heard people say that like it's not a Cory Wells song if it doesn't say fuck in it. And
I thought about bringing that up and being like, it seems that you just kind of sneak it in, like it just kind
well,
of like makes its way in.
the first time it was an accident. It was in the first time I did it was in Avoid the Blame, and I sort of say it under my breath because I thought it was a shitty take. And like that was like I sang a line and I was like fuck. And I just like thought it
Oh,
was a bad take.
is that uh the taking the cap off? Is that song?
Uh I
Am
did
I
it on purpose in that one.
okay?
I did it
Oh
on
no,
purpose. That's Walk Away.
that's Walk Away. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but so it's on my first demo. There's a song called "Avoid the Blame," and that song has I can't even remember the line, um, but I don't know. I thought it was a bad take, and I said "fuck" under my breath, and then my producer was like, "That was so sick," and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "No, no, no." It was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, and I was like, "That was a bad take." And he's like, "No, no, no, listen back." And I listened to it, and I was like, "Oh, that's tight. We got to keep it." But the singer of Killing the Dream all the time, just out of like pure like rage or frustration or desperation or something, just like yells "fuck" like randomly.
Yeah.
So I kind of like took that from them a little bit. But yeah, I kind of took that from them a little bit. I was inspired by it.
I like it because it's not like it doesn't feel forced. It's more
Yeah, it has to be at the right spot. You can't
yeah.
just do it.
It's
You
it
can't just
it
do it wherever you
it
want.
all makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess like how I found out about your music is what completely by accident. I was in my game room playing a game, and I think I was like grinding trophies or something, and I just like threw on YouTube and just a mix and just let it play. And End of a Good Thing came on, and I was like I got halfway through it, and I was like, who the fuck is this? And
That's the one that gets everybody.
I looked at it and I was like, where did this come from? So like I just put on a mix of your music and I was like, okay, all right, goddamn. Like I I feel like I have a like there's a soft spot that I have for like the kind of music that you write specifically. Like it's acoustic, but it's not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I very much grew up like with hardcore and metal, and I like have always wanted to incorporate that somehow.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's one of the things that like my scream, like if you listen to Killing the Dream, it's like my screams are just very like desperation. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
feel like I was influenced by them for that. Like, I don't like sound like him, but I feel like it's the same emotion.
It's
And
very like post-hardcore esque type of scream. Like it's definitely like a
yeah,
throwback. Like I feel that when you do it, like I feel like it's like the like Silverstein and Hawthorne Heights and like the Used. Like it's very much.
funny, I don't listen. I haven't really been ever into Silverstein or Hawthorne Heights, but I did grow up loving the Used a lot.
They are one of my favorite bands. Like from that era. Like their new stuff, I'm really not super big on, but that self-titled, you can see it
Yeah, oh
right
yeah,
there.
yeah. Self-titled's great.
That record,
I like the one after more.
In Love and Death. Yeah, that's a good one.
The black one with the red heart on it.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good. I
That
have
one's
that
my
on vinyl
favorite.
too somewhere.
That one's my favorite, but it's because it's the one that when I learned of them, um, that was the newest record that they had.
Yeah.
So that was the one that I listened to the most. But I love that, and yeah, I definitely think scream wise, it's like similar to that, where there's some lines, and what I love about the screaming too is that there are words that are not singable. Like, there's lines that this is what I want to say, but if I sing it, it's just kind of cheesy.
It's not
But
going
if
to
I
hold the
yell
same
it,
weight. Yeah.
yeah, if I yell it, it's awesome.
I have noticed in the songs that you write where like when you scream, it's like it's that out of desperation feel, or like to get a point across, or because you're talking about, this scenario or that scenario. Like it's very fitting.
Yeah, it's gotta be. It took a long time to, and like not every song calls for it. Either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's it. There's not screaming in all the songs. I wish there was, um, but it just doesn't always call for it. But my favorite screaming part that I have done is at the very end of the last record that I just put out. This is
Yeah.
my favorite screaming part that I've ever done. And I remember being in the studio and I wrote it and I was writing the pattern for it and writing the words, and I just like heard it in my head, and uh and I was like, "Oh, I gotta write this down." And then I went and did it and I was like, that's it. Like, and I just remember recording that. It was so hard to record that part too, because I mean, like I said, like the recording sessions were like therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And I was recording that part like losing it,
Yeah.
like about to just break down, like
Which
yelling these fucking words.
which I think like is really great to come across in like those moments in the songs, because it makes sense. Like it gets the emotion across. Like I think like I struggle to find new music now, like especially with new artists, because I feel like everything's so bland, it's so meaningless. It just
Can't tell if it's just us getting old or not.
I feel like that's part of it, but like I also feel like a lot of the raw emotion and feelings have like gotten taken out of music. Like it's almost like it's become a taboo thing, like to write something that actually means something.
Sure. I mean, I feel like it's harder for me to find that too, but I still think there are like big artists that are still doing that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the way that we want them to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still doing it like for example, like Billie Eilish has
Yeah.
like a couple songs where like it's like, man, I feel that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she has like Ocean Eyes is one that like is like, that's a song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't like all of her stuff, but I do. Like even like Bad Guy was a good song. Like I don't know, I like quite a bit of her music because I feel like she puts that emotion into a lot of it.
She
And
does
some of
she
them
does
sure are
seem
really fun.
like an actual like songwriter too. Like I feel like also when you get to like that level of fame and stuff, you get lost in this like big room of all these massive songwriters like collaborating, and it just kind of gets like lost in translation of like,
Yeah, but you look at the writing credits on all her shit, and it's just her and her brother.
yeah, which I mean she's definitely an outlier in
She
that.
just sat in a room with her brother where she could be herself and he could be himself.
Yeah.
They just put themselves into music.
Yeah, and I like how open she is about that too. Like every interview that I've seen of her, like and she's talking about that, like she will say like, yeah, I like my brother, or we write songs together. Like that gets lost now because like everybody's just collaborating, like 10 people in a room.
But I mean, even like another one too is like that. I'm not a huge fan of at all. Is like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
God, one album that's called Folklore that
Yep.
I enjoy quite a few songs on there. But there's one she did with is it with Bonnie Vare? I think she has a song with Bonnie Vare, and it's a really good song. And like I definitely hear the emotion in that, and it almost they do like this counter melody where they're like singing over the top of each other, and it takes me like to like Taking Back Sunday kind of,
Yeah.
and I like it for that too. But I can definitely hear that that song means a lot to her, and it's
Yeah.
not just a formula.
Man, those
But I
those
think
old Taylor Swift albums, God, those were so good.
yeah, I just feel like music has moved into a different direction of where it's like you just always it's just gotta put out a new song, gotta put out a new song, gotta put
Yeah.
out a new song, and you don't always feel all of them. Like you're doing a lot of them because it's your job, and
Yeah.
you're not doing a lot of them because you have to do it for your own mental sanity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I try to like. That's why it took me so long, is because I needed every song to be a song that was like, if I don't get this out of me, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah. Which, like, that's why I've gravitated towards the styles of music that I've gravitated towards. Like, we've got like the hardcore and like the more like emotion driven, like passionate hardcore. Like Have Heart or
And because they're writing this music because they have something to say and they have to say it.
exactly. Yes, that's 100% it. You just nailed it right on the head. Like, you have something to say and you have to say it. Like, I miss
That's why I love
that.
it. It's like they didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So I've got two more questions for you. They're really quick, and then I'll
Sure.
I'll let you get off here. I've kept you long enough.
That's all right.
So when are you gonna start touring here? Are you allowed to say?
I don't know, man. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. I'm sort of taking a break.
I'm assuming that because of like working on the record and how draining it was, like you're just kind of like, I need to take a breather.
That's part of it. Um, the record took a lot out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of it is that my hands are all fucked up. Um, I I've seen a couple doctors about it, and they think it's some sort of arthritis thing. But I
Okay.
literally playing guitar is like the hardest thing to do right now.
Interesting.
And they said that it's from like a combination of everything. Like I play games, but I
Yeah.
also work in construction and I use my hands constantly.
Yep.
And it's also from playing acoustic guitar for the last 15 years, like for fucking 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I have a really hard time. Like the last couple tours that I did, every song, I'm playing these chords, and my hand is just starting to like lock up,
Yeah.
and I like don't have control of it, and I'm just sitting here. Instead of like when I play live, I've always just like I count off the song and I close my eyes and then I'm in my own world.
Yeah.
And the last couple tours, every song, the world that I'm living in is fuck my hand hurts, fuck my hand hurts, fuck my hand hurts. Am I gonna get through this song?
Yeah.
And it was miserable to wake up every day and think, am I gonna be able to get through the set tonight?
Yeah.
And and then on top of that, like my songs aren't exactly easy for me to sing.
Yeah.
So it's not like all fun and games and do whatever I want. Like I don't drink on tour, I don't smoke on tour, because if I fuck up my voice, like there's no show.
Yeah.
You know? Like I decided to write a type of music where it's all about my voice.
Yeah.
So I have to baby it, and I gotta go to bed early. I have to have my guys stay up and drive late at night. I have to like and on top of that, I'm like still smaller. So when I'm done with my set, I have to go to the merch table and I have to talk to everybody, which I love doing.
Yeah.
But talking is the worst thing.
For your yeah, when
Is
you're trying to baby your voice, yeah.
Yeah, like talking is horrible, and I have to sit there and sometimes I'm talking to a group of people one after another for like over an hour after I've just screamed my face off,
Yeah.
and all I need to do is go to sleep. So I'm just constantly on tour, just like drinking my body weight in water every day, and I'm not talking to my bandmates because I don't want to talk and I don't want to stress out my voice.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, are my hands going to be able to play guitar today? I'm putting like CBD cream on my hands and wearing a brace, and like it just got to be so stressful and so not an enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I put out this record, and I know there's a lot of people saying like, when are you going to tour, when are you going to tour, and the answer is I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
And then the last question I have for you is like why are you not more active on social media in terms of like, spreading music or even just like making like not regular
um,
posts but just like keeping up a little bit?
I
It's a
think
weird
part of
question,
it
but
part of it is I don't really get any enjoyment out of it.
okay.
I don't I don't really spend any time on Instagram, or um I like Twitter because Twitter's like interacting with people.
Sure.
But Instagram, I feel like it just got to be such like a self promotion thing, and I've never really gotten like, I've always posted on Instagram because someone told me I had to. Like
Makes sense, yeah.
I've always been this way.
Yeah.
And that was a constant fight with the label as well, because you have to promote yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know, I don't like to do it, and I know it's not the best business move, but I got to where I was by just letting my music speak for itself.
Yeah.
And maybe it's arrogant, maybe it's foolish, um, but to me that was kind of just the way I wanted to do it. Was just write really good music, and if it's good, people will like it and they'll come see me play and they'll support me. And I feel like I was able to do that to the extent that I wanted to do it. Um, but I don't know, I've never really been big on to social media. I think it creates so many more problems than it solves.
You're
And
you're 100% correct there. I fully agree with you, like especially with
someone to
kids.
take part in that. And it's I don't know, it's my life too, and I like to just keep it that way.
Yeah. I like
Like
like one of the big reasons that I like kind of wanted to ask you that question is like uh as I was like preparing, this podcast and like the questions that I wanted to ask, like I didn't want to be like the typical interview. Like I wanted to like ask questions that were a little more personable or something that you're like, "Oh wow, like I never thought about that," or something like that. Like I looked at your Instagram and I looked at your Facebook and I was like, "Man, like he hasn't posted since like 2023." Like
I haven't logged into Facebook in 15 years. Any post on Facebook is like either like my manager will tell me like, "Hey, I got to post something for this. Can you give me a quote or something?"
mm,
And I'll tell him what to say, and
yeah.
he does it. I don't post anything on Facebook. I don't interact on Facebook. And I always tell people, I tell them the best way to get a hold of me is Twitter. Like
Yeah.
if you want to interact with me in some sense, Twitter is going to be the place to do it. I have Instagram notifications on my phone turned off.
Yeah.
I have like a pages of message requests that I don't see,
Yeah.
um, because I don't know, and I go through them every now and again and
Yeah.
respond to people, but it's not. When things started to take off, it was like my phone was just going crazy, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to be glued to it. so I sort of shut it off. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just never been a big social media kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Instagram, but I mean, my wife is like the same way too. Like, she hasn't posted anything on Instagram in forever either. She'll do like one or two posts a year.
Yeah.
Something like, we got like a dog, a year and a half ago, and she's posted like one like collage thing of like the dog growing up, and that was like
Yeah.
the first thing she's posted in 2 years.
Yeah, like that's props to both of you for that, because I mean, it speaks volumes to you as people, because you don't, like, you have the know-it-all or the know-all to stay away and just be like, if I open the door, it's going to be very hard to close it.
Yeah, and it's just, dude, it's hard. Like, everything is now, it's like the election, so everything's just politics. Take part in it.
100%. Yep.
It's always some sort of drama that's going on where it's like, pick a side,
Yeah.
and I don't want to pick a side.
Yeah.
I
That's
just want to go to work, and I want to come home and see my wife. I want to hop on the computer. I want to play some games with my friends. Like, I want to have my dog and my cats, and that's, go over. I got a new nephew. I want to go over there, hang out with my nephew, see my parents. Like, that's what I want to spend my time doing.
yeah. That's the most respectable answer I think anybody could give. Like, you just want to stay in your lane. You just want to live your life. You're not worried about what anybody else is doing. You're not worried about what anybody's saying. You're not worried about what's going on. You're just here to live your life and just do what you do.
None of it affects me. I mean, like, go out and vote. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
go vote, because that affects everybody. So go vote. But I mean, other than that, it's like, I mean, it's like Linkin Park. Do I really care what Linkin Park's doing? Do I care about whatever some band drama is happening? No, I don't. I don't care. I just want to go to work and come home and play some games
Yeah,
with my family.
that's pretty much like what I do. Like, I
It's stressful to go on social media.
it
It's always stressful, and everybody's arguing.
yeah, it really is. It just makes you, like, I wouldn't say it makes me miserable, but like, it makes me feel a certain way when I see somebody like sharing something and I'm like, oh my god, like, why did you have to go?
I have to like stay off like TikTok now, because TikTok is just only showing me politics.
Yeah.
Instagram Reels is the only like saving grace that I have, because it's all Lord of the Rings memes. That I can get behind. My wife gets mad. I'll send her like fucking 15 cat videos and like 10 Lord of the Rings memes, and she gets irritated at that. She thinks they're funny. I hope, but yeah. I mean, that's Instagram shows me that stuff right now, so I look at that from time to time.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm just getting mad at Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the stuff, like, I work outside. I have headphones in all day. I'm constantly listening to, whether it's a podcast or content creators with games and stuff, or people that I keep up with. And, I started the podcast because I wanted to share, my passion for games and music and movies and just things that I like. And I couldn't do it alone, so I drug a buddy in to do it, and he sits down here and I have to constantly yell at him to stay off his phone while we're recording. And we, I have a bunch of talking points that I want to talk about, whether it's, music or movies or games or streamer drama that I listen to or pay attention to. But like, we keep it like politic free. We might touch on like something ridiculous that's going on just because it's ridiculous, but like, it's my
You're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, like, this is my outlet to just like talk to people that I want to talk to, and just like sit in a basement with a friend, like the only friend that I really have left that I can just talk to, and put it on the internet, and if somebody likes it, cool. if somebody doesn't like it, cool. So like when we started talking about guests, like the minute I saw you talking about Harbor, I was just like, he's the one that I want to talk. I want to talk to him, and I want to talk games and music and just let it go from there and see what happens. And when you responded, I was like, I didn't think I would get this far, but
You caught me on a day where I checked Instagram.
so I was like, all right, like I guess we're doing this. So, dude, thank you for responding. Thanks for coming on, and thank you for talking to me about and like going into detail about like the stuff that the stuff that I wanted you to go into like deep detail with. I appreciate.
It was a ton of fun, and I had a great time. And I told my wife, like, I was like, hey, I'm coming home today. I'm gonna do like this podcast thing, and it's about like music and games and stuff. And she was like, yeah, that's great. And I was like, yeah, I think I haven't done anything like in the music realm. Like like it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever tour again, and you come to the East Coast and Pennsylvania specifically or Maryland, please hit me up. Let me know, because I would love to come out and see you play. If you ever want to come back on again, just hit me up. I'd love to have you on again.
Let's play some games, dude.
Yeah, 100%. You know where to find me.
You play Counter-Strike or what?
I haven't played Counter-Strike.
Oh.
But I guess.
Not a shooter guy.
So I think the thing that happened to me with shooters is, as my friend, like I've had a really bad track record with friends. So like,
Sure.
I'll have like a really close friend, and then they just decide that I'm not good enough, and they'll just disappear. So me and my wife both have had couple friends where they're couples, and we're both friends with each person, and then they just turn out to be the shittiest people, and they just like disappear out of our lives. They just find something to be mad about, and they're just gone. So I've really lost a lot of people that I used to play games with. So when it comes down to like sitting down to play a game, it's like, I guess I'm just going to play a single player game, because I look at, Discord or whatever. I'm like, oh, there's nobody here.
I mean, I have a Discord server with, it used to be a lot bigger, and then it's just like a pretty small group of guys now.
Yeah.
We just play Counter-Strike and PUBG and like stuff like that. So if you want to get back into that, and like they're all super nice dudes. I started the Discord from music. Like I posted on Twitter one day. I was like, hey, like I play games. Like if you guys want to play games, like here's my Discord server. And I met all of these dudes through just a Twitter post, and we've just been gaming for like 7 years now.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, shoot me the invite to that.
Yeah, man. If you want to hop on, play some games with some of the guys, they're all just super nice, and they're all from, one guy's in New York, one guy lives in Wisconsin, one guy lives down here with me. Like, we're just from all over, and we just like we're all gonna go to the Counter-Strike major tournament is gonna be in Texas at the beginning of next year, and we've never been to like a gaming event.
Yeah,
like all just been super into Counter-Strike, and we're like, fuck it, like let's go. So
yeah,
we're just gonna get together and go to Texas and drink some beer and yell at Counter-Strike.
That sounds fantastic. If you're ever looking for a convention to go to, since you're over there in California, there's some guys that I watch on YouTube. It just passed, so it won't be till next year. It's called SoCal Gaming Expo.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Dude, these guys from YouTube just bought it from another guy, and it was their first year running it. And they went all out. Like, they had a mini ramp with pro skaters there, and they had like that. They had the Tetris World Championship there. They had like all of these crazy things going on. Logan Paul showed up to play in the Tetris World Championship unannounced. I don't know. I didn't like watch the stuff from it, but like I've a lot of people that I watch on YouTube in like the gaming realm are all in that like group of people and are friends with them, and they were like it was just insane. Like they just went all out. They had an emo cover band playing like Tony Hawk Pro Skater covers, and just dude, it was apparently it was just this wild, like really well done expo with just a ton of stuff to do for everybody. So if you're ever in, I forget where it's at exactly, but if I find it, I'll shoot it over your way.
Yeah, man, it sounds like fun. Well, I mean, it's been great, brother. I had a ton of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, anytime, man.